I said, this is one of the biggest gaps between the best and second best player we've ever seen, talking about A'ja Wilson in the WNBA. And I'm confused because I'm seeing fans bring up Caitlin Clark. Like, don't get me wrong, she's really good, but she's barely the best guard in the league, let alone...
Nobody expected this to happen so fast. All year long, A'ja Wilson's name sat locked at the top of the MVP race. 4 rings deep, thrown untouched. Nobody even knocking on the door. But that comfort just got interrupted, and trust me, it wasn't a quiet knock.
Kelsey Mitchell.
Can I get there?
Oh, my bad.
Kelsey Mitchell, Paige Beckers.
You hear in that clip, Aaliyah Boston jumps in as Candace is speaking and says, make sure that you say Kelsey Mitchell. Now, who Aaliyah Boston didn't mention, who Candace didn't mention, was Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark didn't ask to be in this conversation. She forced her way in. A few weeks ago, her name barely made the top 5 list. Now, she's the one everyone's talking about first. No interviews, no big speeches, no campaigning for votes. Just buckets, assists, and a stat sheet that refused to stay quiet.
NBA history. 45 points, 10 assists, and the Indiana Fever beat the Seattle Storm. And this wasn't just a career night, it was record-breaking night. First player in WNBA history to record 40-plus points and 10-plus assists in the same game. Set a new Indiana Fever franchise record with 45 points. Added another historic milestone to a career that's already rewriting the record books. And she did it all while still on a minute restriction. When Caitlin Clark is healthy, she changes everything. The pace, the spacing, the energy, and nights like this remind everyone why.
Let's rewind to July. When WNBA players sat down and ranked the league's best guards, Caitlin Clark landed at number 11. 11. That's behind players she was outscoring, outplaying, and outproducing week after week. She was sitting 4th in the league in scoring, 2nd in assists, and her own peers still had her at number 11.
All the MVP candidates on points generated per game, points scored, points generated, and by assists. Now, as you guys can see here, Caitlin Clark got hurt at the beginning of this season, but she's doing this with only 31 games. So when we sit up here and say Caitlin Clark is not the greatest, at least right now, you're lying to yourself because she clearly is.
A number like that doesn't come from stats. It comes from bias, plain and simple. And it was already outdated the moment it dropped. Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young sat right behind her on that same list. 2 players who, if you caught them being honest, would probably agree the gap was way bigger than 11 spots. Clark wasn't just underrated here. She was miscounted.
First in the WNBA in total points created. She is first in the WNBA in points per game created. She is first in points per minute when she is on the court. Leads the league in assists per game, and she is also...
Something is happening in the WNBA that nobody saw coming this fast, and it's about to make a lot of people uncomfortable. For months, the MVP trophy had one name attached to it. 4 rings deep, untouchable. The conversation basically closed before it even opened. Then, out of nowhere, the whole thing flipped, and it did not flip slowly. Let's go back to July for a second, because this is where the story really starts. WNBA players themselves sat down and voted on the best guards in the league. Caitlin Clark came in at number 11. 11. That's not a typo. She was sitting 4th in the entire league in scoring and 2nd in total assists at the time, and her own peers still had her ranked behind 10 other guards. That's not a stat. That's an opinion, and it was already wrong the moment it went public. Players like Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young landed right behind her on that same list. And if you caught either of them being honest, they'd probably tell you that gap was never close to fair. 2 weeks after that vote leaked out, Clark walked into a game against Seattle and answered it the only way she knows how. She dropped 45 points and handed out 10 assists in a single night, becoming the first player in WNBA history to ever post a 40-point, 10-assist game. Not just a good line, a historic one. A line the entire league had never seen before, from a player who 11 other guards had just been ranked ahead of. The timing was almost too perfect. Voters cast their ballots, and days later, Clark responded with a box score so loud nobody could argue with it, spin it, or explain it away. And that's the pattern that has followed her all year. Everybody underrates her, and then she goes out and makes that underrating look foolish within a matter of games. It happened with the preseason rankings. It happened with the guard vote. And now it's happening with the MVP race itself, a conversation that completely excluded her name a few months ago and now has her sitting right at the very top of it. Look at the raw numbers over her last 10 games. Nearly 25 points a night, 9 assists, shooting 47% from the field and 41% from three. That's not a hot streak. That's an MVP-level stretch by any definition. Aya Wilson still has a monster case. Nobody's taking that away from her. Kelsey Mitchell belongs in the conversation too. But Clark's late push has gotten impossible to ignore. Here's where it actually gets uncomfortable for Wilson, though. Clark isn't just showing up in this race anymore. She's leading it. Right now, she is out in front of every single MVP candidate in points generated per game, total points scored, and total assists. Ahead of her own teammate, who sits 34 points behind her in second place. Ahead of Kelsey Mitchell. Ahead of Wilson. And here's the detail that makes it even wilder. Clark has played roughly a game and a half fewer than the players she's beating in every one of those categories. She is doing more, in less time, than everyone else chasing the same trophy. Think about what that actually means. It's one thing to lead a stat category when you've played every game and logged every available minute. It's a completely different thing to lead it while missing time, while your competitors are getting extra games to pad their totals, and you're still coming out ahead anyway. That's not luck. That's not a hot stretch. That's a player operating on a different level, doing more damage in fewer minutes than her closest competition can manage with a full workload. And it doesn't stop at the box score. Clark now ranks 4th all-time among more than 850 guards in career points, sitting at 690 total. That's a number most players spend an entire decade chasing. She's doing it years into her career, not decades. On top of that, she leads the league and makes from behind the arc, the exact shot that defines modern offense. This season alone, she hit a career-high 32 mid-range shots, more than her first 2 seasons combined. That's not a small jump. That's a player expanding her entire game in real time, adding a shot that wasn't even part of her arsenal before and mastering it well enough to blow past her first 2 years combined in a matter of months. Most players spend an entire offseason retooling footwork, drilling the same pull-up jumper thousands of times in an empty gym, hoping it translates once a defender is closing out at full speed. Clark put in that work, and now defenses can't sag off her and dare her to shoot from mid-range anymore, because she's proven she'll make them pay. There's another number worth sitting with. Clark generated over 40 points created in a single game this season, the most by any player in WNBA history. Not just this season's history, league history. That number counts the points she scored plus the points she directly set up for teammates, and it measures something more important than raw scoring. It measures gravity. It tells you she isn't padding a stat sheet by chucking shots. She's running an entire offense through her hands, and every possession gets more dangerous the second she touches the ball. The numbers keep piling up the deeper you dig. There have been 120 20-point, 10-assist games in WNBA history. Clark has 19 of them, and she's done it in less than 3 seasons. She has more of those games than every franchise in the league except her own. She has 9 20-point, 10-assist games this season alone, the most by any player in a single year, breaking her own record from 2024. She became the fastest player in league history to reach a combined 1,500 career points and 500 assists. She's the only player ever to average at least 20 points and 8 assists in a single month, and she's already done it 5 times. She's on pace to be the first player in league history to average 20 and 8 across an entire season. And the team is winning because of it. The Fever now sit first in the East and 4th overall, having won 7 of their last 9 games by an average of 14 points. The first game of that streak was the 45-point, 10-assist, for steal, 2-block night against Seattle, a line so rare that only a handful of NBA players have ever matched it in a single game. That kind of production doesn't happen by accident. It happens when a point guard sees the floor a full step ahead of everyone else on it, already calculating her next 2 passes before the ball even reaches her hands. Watch the tape back and you'll see defenders biting on fakes that aren't even real fakes. Just Clark reading their weight distribution and making the decision half a second before they do. On top of all that, she was just named Player of the Week for the 4th time this season. 4th. That's not a one-week overreaction. That's a player getting recognized over and over at regular intervals across an entire year. And when it happens for separate times, it stops being a coincidence and starts being a pattern nobody can keep pretending not to see. Now flip back to Wilson, because this is exactly where the frustration has to start setting in. She spent this whole season carrying the same message, that she's been the best since the year she was born, and that nobody is taking her spot. She's earned the right to say it. 4 MVPs, 3 championships, a resume most players in this league will never sniff. But resumes are built in the past tense. MVP races are decided in the present tense, and right now, in the present tense, Clark is outproducing her. Wilson is still the best two-way player in the league, still deadly from mid-range, still one of the most dominant athletes on either end of the floor. Nobody's arguing that away. She leads the league in scoring average and blocks, and those numbers matter. But Clark is doing more with less. Fewer games, more points created, more assists, more record-setting nights, all while carrying a fever offense that leads the entire league in scoring, a team she basically built from the ground up over 3 seasons. That contrast is exactly why this race flipped overnight. Wilson didn't get worse. Clark got so undeniable, so fast, that voters had no choice but to reconsider everything they assumed about this race back in June. And once voters start reconsidering, the conversation rarely swings back the other way, especially when the player forcing that reconsideration keeps adding record after record to back it up. This is the part that has to sting for the very players who ranked Clark 11th at her own position. Every one of them is now watching the exact player they slotted below 10 other guards sit at the very top of the MVP conversation. Every outlet that questioned whether she deserved a top 5 mention is now writing pieces explaining how she got here. That's not a small reversal. That's the entire narrative flipping in real time, and the people who doubted her now have to answer for it, whether they want to or not. She's had to work twice as hard for this recognition as almost anyone else in the race. She wasn't handed a top 5 preseason ranking. She dropped to 11th in some rankings before the season had even hit its midpoint. She had to answer questions about shooting slumps, about whether the rookie hype had worn off, about whether the league had simply figured her out. Instead of shrinking from any of it, she used it as fuel, expanding her mid-range game, pushing her assist numbers higher, and delivering the single most historic scoring line of the season, all while playing fewer total games than the players chasing her. As of yesterday, she became the fastest player to reach 700 career assists in WNBA history. Not just WNBA history, basketball history. It took LaMelo Ball 104 games to hit 700 assists. It took LeBron James 159 games. Clark got there faster than both of them. She is first in the league in total points created, first in points created per game, first in points generated per minute on the floor, first in assists per game, and third overall in scoring this season. If this pace holds, she has to finish top 3 in scoring and number 1 in assists per game to complete something no player in WNBA history has ever done. Based on where she sits with games still left to play, that's not a long shot anymore. That's a real possibility sitting right in front of her. So ask yourself the simple question. Why is a player who was ranked 11th at her own position by her peers just months ago now the same player holding the single-game points created record in league history, leading the entire MVP field in scoring and assists, and collecting Player of the Week honors on repeat? Either every one of those votes was wrong, or Clark simply refused to let a wrong opinion write the rest of her season for her. Wilson can keep believing she's been the greatest since the year she was born. Nobody's stopping her from saying it. But belief and box scores are 2 different things, and right now, the box scores belong to Clark. If nothing changes between now and the end of the season, she isn't just going to be part of this MVP conversation. She's going to be the first name everyone is forced to say, whether they ranked her 11th or not, and whether the rest of the league is ready for it or not. If you don't want to miss how this MVP race ends, make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications, because this story is nowhere near finished, and the next chapter might be even bigger than this one.